On September 11th, 2001, I was at work in my office. At the time, my job involved searching the internet for things, and I remember noticing around about 9:30 or so that morning or so that I started to have more and more trouble connecting to websites in general. A lot of, you know, page doesn't exist errors and stuff like this, and I didn't know what was going on until a few minutes later. One of my coworkers stuck his head in my office and said, "A plane has hit the World Trade Center." And to be honest with you, I didn't even know what the World Trade Center was at the time. I know now after everything that's happened, but at the time I thought to myself, sounds like somebody who just had some mechanical problem or whatever. I didn't really think anything. Was when I heard plane, I was thinking small plane. It wasn't until the same coworker stuck his head in my office about 20 minutes later or so and said, "A second plane is hit," that I realized that something strange is going on. But I still wasn't even thinking of terrorists until after they called us out of our offices, took a meeting and said we're closing down for the day. So I went home and sat down on the couch, and I actually saw what was actually happening, and for the first time I realized how serious the situation was. I got home pretty much around the time the first tower, the South Tower, came down. If not around then, it was not too long after, because I remember that's the first image I saw when I turned on the TV, was the tower coming down. And I remember a few days later, Canada had a ceremony on Parliament Hill to honor those lost on September 11th, and we were gathered again at work in the cafeteria that day listening to that. And I remember I felt okay. I thought I was going to be fine, but I said, this is starting to get to me a little bit. I think I should go and talk about this. So I went to who was then my supervisor's office and sat down in his office, and I broke down crying. All of a sudden I just couldn't hold it. I couldn't believe that people would actually do that to each other, to be honest with you. After 10 years later, I've seen a lot about it, and I know a lot has happened, a lot has changed about the world, and I understand some of what happened, but I still have trouble getting my mind around why anyone would even want to do.
Back on September 11th, 2001, I was working night shift, and I got a call about 10 o'clock in the morning from my brother-in-law who was at work. He said, something going on down in the States, turn on CNN and see if they're showing anything. So I turned on CNN, and they showed the first tower was already hit and there was smoke coming up, and was watching this obviously to see what was going on. And as I was watching CNN, I saw the second plane hit. It came in live just on TV, and it took a few seconds for them to realize that there had been another building hit, and it was unbelievable to watch it all, and the reaction, and then obviously when the buildings came down, just unbelievable. So it's certainly a day that people won't forget, that's for sure. I think they had al-Qaeda as being the cause pretty early on and stuff, so I don't go along with all the conspiracy theorists that are out there, but it was just a tragedy, and a lot of people lost their lives, and so it took the U.S. down quite a bit with their reaction to it, and the economy hasn't recovered since. But the war with Iraq had a big hit on the U.S. economy, and then that dragged down the rest of the world, really. My humble opinion. Like I said, feel bad for the families of the victims, and probably it's going to be a tough week for them all, as all the news is already starting with all the commemoration and stuff like that. So, it's just a very sad day.
Actually, I was kind of in a unique situation. I was actually getting my wisdom teeth out that day in the New Waterford Hospital. And at that point, they kind of give you some joy juice. They make you a little bit drowsy. You sit back. When I woke up, my wisdom teeth were out, and someone was mentioning there was a couple of planes that crashed into the World Trade Center, and one that actually was into the Pentagon, and one I believe by Pennsylvania. So at that point, people were saying it was a terrorist act. So I wasn't 100% sure if I was hallucinating at that point, because again, I had a little bit of joy juice in me at that point with the from the doctor kind of killing my pain. Once I was able to come through, I went home, and for that entire day, I was laid up and just watched it consistently on the television. I was unfortunately totally entrenched in watching, the unfortunate accident, because you wanted to see how many people could actually get out and survive at that point. But it was a very, very tough day for all, I would say, people that were involved. Also, unfortunately, people watching as well. It had a direct impact on the world across the board. Well, it's interesting because you watch movies. I watched one by Michael Moore. I watched Fahrenheit 9/11. I watched, different documentaries. I mean, there's no concrete evidence or supporting documentation at 100% that tells me it was a conspiracy theory. However, you do see the opportunities where one could possibly think that, based on the documentation that and the association that a lot of people had with some of the groups of cells with terrorism. So it's unfortunate, but I think at this point I feel that both Canada and the United States are much stronger from a security standpoint. I think there's definitely some continued education that needs to happen. I think the world is in a different place with the capturing and the death of Osama bin Laden and also Saddam Hussein. But again, you always have to be very careful, because there's going to be more people around that would want to, follow in the footsteps of those two unfortunate leaders that decided to do these horrible acts of violence to many innocent people.
I was teaching a GED course at the Miners Training Center in Glace Bay. These centers were created after the close of the mines.
Okay.
And we came out at break when there was a TV on the reception desk, and everybody was gathered around, and the first building had a plane crash into it, and it was still uncertain what was going on. So we went back in. When we came out at lunch, the other planes had hit, and we actually adjourned for the day. We closed the center for the day because it was on all the channels and everybody wanted to see what was going on. So that's where I was. I remember it clearly. And then I went home and watched it on TV till I went to bed. I think going into Afghanistan was the absolutely right thing to do for everyone that did that, for every country, including us. I think going into Iraq was probably a mistake because they didn't deal with Afghanistan first. And now that led time for some terrorists to move their operations into Pakistan and come back. However, as much as I hated that decision to go into Iraq, and I'm really glad Canada didn't, it strikes me now that given the Arab Spring with uprisings, and they want to kill Mubarak in Egypt, they want to kill Gaddafi in Libya, and indeed those gentlemen do deserve that. But the first one to go down was Saddam Hussein in Iraq, and in a weird way, as bad as that decision by George Bush was, maybe that had rippling effect that we're now seeing the good things out of now. I still believe going into Iraq was a mistake. Glad we didn't. But now, right now, with democracy starting to take root, you never know what may have caused it. And maybe it all started with 9/11, but that was a horrendous price to pay.
I came home from school, just elementary, 11 years old, plastered on CNN, watching over and over again, planes going through the towers and watching it crash. Just, oh my God, how can this be happening in the world today? I was hoping everyone would be okay.
Okay.
And come to realize that they weren't okay. I was devastated by that. I think people took a bad turn towards people in the Middle East because of that, when it was just a small group of people that actually went and did it. Now they stereotype all Middle Eastern people as having that tendency to go and cause devastation, when there's a lot of Middle Eastern people that are actually very nice. They do everything for anyone else, and people just got that stereotype against them now.
I was working from home that day, and I did hear online that there was something happening at the 911 in the States at World Trade Center 1. And I was outside, I was talking to my neighbor, and he told me he's heard the same thing. So when I come back in, I turn the news on just in time. At that time, to see the second plane actually hit the second tower. I couldn't believe it. It was just amazing. And just to see when that plane flew into the tower was just an unbelievable shot. I expected, when I heard the first one, that maybe something happened, like just a little mishap, that maybe an airplane was low flying, maybe hit the tower, but when I seen the size of the plane, couldn't believe it. It was amazing. Just seen the show, matter of fact, a couple of nights ago, showed what they've done since the towers have come down, in the footprints of the Twin Towers, where they made it's like a waterfall, it almost looks like, where the water's cascading down to a pool. It's very nice. It's a nice setup. There's a park all around there with all kinds of greenery. It's a good tribute to the people that died. Over 3,000 people died, and it affected a lot more people. And like I said, it should never have happened, but it did. And I'm glad to see that what they have now with that memorial. It looks very nice. It's real nice.
I was actually in my office at home. I was on the computer checking my emails, and it just rang. There was a new email there, message from a friend of mine in Boston about some music in Cape Breton, and she ended it by saying, "Oh, I see I have to go now. I see a plane that's gone into the World Trade Center." So I said, "Oh, better check on this." Went to CNN. I figured there'd be the tail end of a Piper Cub sticking out of the side of it. And I was watching it when the second plane went in. I didn't leave the chair all day. It was just that dramatic. I think that was the day that North America lost its innocence. Well, I know the world's never going to be the same, that's for sure. We're not. The world isn't as good a place as it was. There's much more suspicion than there was. There's much more. Just the security measures that have to be taken. We're almost being held hostage by an idea, by a thought.
I was in class at Mount St. Vincent, and somebody walked in the classroom and told us what happened. And the professor let us out of class really quick, and we all sat everybody in the dorm rooms of all of our dorm were glued to the TV set. We were all gathered together, and all the girls were crying and stuff like that. And that's what I remember most. And I remember having all the people that were stranded at the airport, they stayed in the cafeteria at the Mount at the time. And we were all crying, and we were all kind of consoling these people that are stuck in the airport. We were gathering blankets and donating stuff, and that's what I remember most about it all, everybody crying. We had everybody come to the dorm, not come to the dorm, but they were staying in our cafeteria, and they were staying in the lobby at the student center and stuff like that. So we saw people actually stranded for like 5 days. I think that it's just time for everybody to heal, and I think that we can remember what happened, but I think we need to focus on the future and just make sure that doesn't happen ever again.